All right, we are live with the November IABC Leadership Forum. We've got Dianne Chase, we've got Carlos Fulcher, and we've got Melissa Dark. Carlos is in Philadelphia today. I believe that Dianne is in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm dialing in from blustery London, and we've got Melissa Dark on the West Coast. We'll be spending about an hour together today. And in the usual format, we will be doing quite a lot of Q&A. We've had a few questions in already. We'll get to those, but also we encourage you to basically participate. So use the Q&A function on this direct broadcast if you can. You can also tweet. We also have the IBC chapter leader group where you can post questions. We will get to those today, but also in between these sessions. And generally, what I would encourage you to say is that IBC leaders are generally very accessible, so you don't have to wait to run into one at an event or conference or leadership institute. You can actually just pick up the phone or email them. We are all available to help you out. Now, just to give you a quick run through of what we'll be covering today, we'll talk a little bit about the latest report from IBC, a little bit of some of the goodies that you can find within that. We'll also talk a little bit about what happened at the most recent board meeting. We'll tweet a link to the notes from that. Then we'll hand over and hear a little bit more about Membership Month, which was last month, and also have a technology update from our Executive Director, Carlos Fulcher. And then Dianne is going to give us a look ahead on the Leadership Institute coming up early next year. In fact, before that, there's one coming up at a regional level in APAC in Sydney. And I'll talk a little bit more about that around that time. And then, as mentioned, throughout this, we'll do Q&A. So if you've got questions, don't wait for it. Just pile them straight in, and we will get to them. And then, as we round off, we will talk a little bit about School Quill. We'll talk a little bit more about certification exams around the world, a little bit about the Communications Committee, which is continuing its work. We'll also briefly touch on some of the things that we've covered in earlier calls, but just as a gentle reminder, the membership survey. We'll talk a little bit about the leadership survey, which is underway, and so on. And also, I'll talk a little bit about the nominations and other opportunities coming up later on this year. And then last but definitely not least, Carlos will also give us a very brief update on the move of IBC headquarters in San Francisco. And then that's going to be about it. So let's start off with the quarter report. So IBC is back on track with regards to reporting on a regular basis on the activities of the association. We have a very strong set of leaders who have given updates on the work that they have been doing along with staff and leaders around the world. And I have to say I'm very pleased with the progress that is within this. One thing I draw your particular attention to is page 4, which is a Venn diagram that sets out who does what at IABC. Sometimes leaders report that when they join the organization, they find it a little bit confusing to figure out who does what, when, where, and why, and so on. And this one page helps set out a little bit more detail around some of the work going on and who does what, and so on. There's a couple of key points within that I would emphasize, which is that we basically have very much a modern-day organization. We operate with what you might call a freedom within a framework mindset, which is highly collaborative. And that also means that we're highly interdependent. So we really rely on that those strong lines of communication on a daily basis and so on, which comes back to the point that I'm really encouraging you to, if you ever have a question, concern, outrage, curiosity, or simply a question, to reach out to your local leaders, to your regional leaders, and your international leaders. They are there to help you. And indeed, there's 1,000 leaders in IBC, and they are working incredibly hard, and I'm very grateful for that. I think my machine might.
I think we've lost Michael. Okay. Well, whilst Michael is restoring his connection, perhaps we could maybe move on. Dianne, I know that Michael was going to ask you to comment a little bit on the quarterly report. Would you mind taking over?
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Melissa, I think that this report is really, really valuable on a number of levels. It's such a great communication tool, and it helps leaders actually spread the word about what is going on at IABC at so many levels. We have a lot of very exciting initiatives underway, and we want to make sure that everyone is informed and staying in touch as much as possible. We do encourage your feedback as always. And as Michael mentioned, your input is extremely valuable, and it helps us grow IABC and make it successful. And maybe I can just jump to talking about success, talk a little bit about Membership Month, if that's okay. We are very excited that we extended Membership Month through the end of November, so we have a couple of weeks left. And we're seeing extremely impressive and very encouraging returns on this. And Carlos will have the exciting numbers for us. In particular, though, I just wanted to give a big shout out to some of our chapters that are really leading in growth with the Membership Month initiative. So I want to give some kudos here for all of us to kind of be inspired by. So in large chapter category, Edmonton is up at last report almost 22% through their Membership Month initiatives. Extremely impressive. Congratulations to Edmonton. BC chapter is up almost 10%, and Australia Victoria at almost 8%. So again, very, very impressive numbers for our large chapters. Under medium chapters, we're looking at the Philippines up almost 13.5% in membership. Australia New South Wales is over 9.5% growth, and Colorado is just under 9%. And then in small chapters, Queensland is up almost 21.5% in their membership. That is so impressive for a small chapter. Queensland is tied, actually, in their numbers with Oregon, Columbia at almost 21.5%. And then Tanzania, 14.5% almost. So really, really impressive numbers. These chapters are really running with Membership Month, and I hope that they inspire everyone to take this time to make the most of this special offer that we're giving to members, not only in terms of price, but in terms of taking the opportunity to let everyone know that IABC is growing, we are strong, things are turning around, and our value is really more important than ever. And it looks like Michael is back, so I'm going to turn it back over to our chair.
That's great. Thank you very much, Dianne, and a great update there on the Membership Month. I'm not sure how far you got, but I'm hoping that Carlos can talk to us a little bit more about the hard numbers here, and specifically a very topical technology update, considering the fact that it was in fact my laptop which crashed, which points to me that I probably need to do a technology update of my own. Carlos.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Dianne. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you as part of the Leadership Forum call today. And I would just want to echo the comments from both Michael and Dianne and how impressive the report is, and very thankful for all the contributions from our leaders around the globe. What makes this organization possible is the commitment and the hard work of our leaders at the chapter and the regional level. And what we've seen in the month of October, which is our membership month, which for us is a very important month. It's a month that we see a very large number of renewals, with over 1,000 renewals coming due in the month of October. And I'm pleased to report that the month of October for us turned out to be a very successful month. We've transacted over 1,100 transactions in the month of October through our online system, as well as to folks who called in to the office for renewals and joining. And that number was spread fairly evenly between new members as well as members who are renewing and returning as part of their renewal with the organization. So very pleased with that, the way it turned out. Also, part and parcel of the October month was the very, very important Communicator campaign, which we ran in as one of the incentives, if you would. And this was awarded to an individual who was served as a referred to bringing a new individual, new member into the organization. And the winner of the VIC, the very important communicator, who is going to receive a complimentary registration to the World Conference in New Orleans, June 5th and 8th, 2016, is Annette Snell from Toronto chapter. So looking forward to seeing Annette in New Orleans in the summer of next year. So excited about that. As the second part of this update, which speaks to the technology, I think the fact that we've had such a strong number of renewals speaks to the fact that we're getting over the challenges that we've had with technology. It's not perfect, but we're making some good progress as it relates to our online renewal and our joint applications, both of which were deployed. The renewal was deployed back in August, and the join was deployed just prior to the beginning of the October member month. And they've had a big impact in helping us transact through the online channel. So pleased to report that, but also ask that as issues come up, that you would communicate back to myself and my staff so that we can make changes and adjustments and enhancements to the system. As you would expect, there are some issues that are still lingering and outstanding. As a matter of fact, as of today, we are releasing a new patch, which is going to be addressing some of these issues that's been reported back to headquarters. So you may be seeing some instability in the system. Bear with us as we make progress in that front. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Very much appreciated. So I want to quickly go back to the report and just cover a couple of broader updates from that. We get a chance to before my impromptu interruption. So I talked a little bit about the basically the outline of who does what at IABC and so on. And also there's a really detailed update from Carlos, of course, which I recommend that you spend a little bit more time on. The other thing is for those leaders who are interested in the IBC strategy, there's a page dedicated to that, talking through the 2014 to 17 strategy, including our primary overarching goal, which is financial recovery and sustainability, along with, of course, increasing member loyalty through development and our retention programs, and also the broader opportunities that we are exploring. And then it also talks a little bit more about the IBC brand and the rollout. And I think in a future call, we'll have Priya Bates, who led the work to create the new brand framework, to come along and answer questions on that and the rollout. The deadline for full adoption is in June next year, but of course, we are hoping that you might move much sooner than that. And there's a range of really useful resources available for you on that particular topic on the IBC Leader Center. There's also a broader update on strategic progress. We have an update from Dianne on the Leadership Institute. She'll talk more about that today. And also from Thiumeri Karmanis on the IBC Academy, an update from Sue Human from the Global Communication Certification Council. Carlos will talk a little bit more later on about the certifications exams coming up around the world. And Monica Lankoki shared an update on the from the IBC Awards Committee. And then Stacey Wilson on the World Conference, so what we also know as #IBC16. And then Claudia Vaccarone, who also, of course, sits on the IBC board, shared an update on the broader work of the IBC Membership Task Force. It's also an outline of content updates, free-to-member webinars, a little bit of detail around developments on Communication World. We've got a new editorial committee stepping up, headed by John Clemens, which will take a fresh view at that, and so on and so forth. And then last but not least, an overview of the events coming up. We'll talk more about those later on. But for now, I'm going to actually hand over to Dianne to just talk a little bit more about the Leadership Institute, actually, if that's okay with you, Dianne.
Am I unmuted? Okay, I think I am. Thank you, Michael. Very excited about Leadership Institute. We're finalizing speakers, and we have a number of critical breakout sessions that I know that you'll find valuable. Again, this is one of IABC's signature events. The value that we all take away from Leadership Institute cannot be understated. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that they did not walk away from Leadership Institute inspired motivated with all sorts of new skills and really thought leadership that occurs there. So it is a unique opportunity as a leader in IABC, and not just current leaders, but who's a prospective leader coming up that you know of that you can encourage to attend. Again, we start with a welcome reception on February 4th at 5:30, and then wind up around noon, 12:30, 1 o'clock on February 6th. So be sure to be there the 4th through the 6th. We encourage you to go ahead and register as soon as possible, and also get your hotel room booked so you don't miss out on that. And very, very important part of the Leadership Institute is our Chapter Management Awards. This is an opportunity for you to really showcase the work that you are doing as IABC leaders. We want to spotlight you, we want to honor you, we want to thank you, and we want to learn from you. And your Chapter Management Awards entry is an opportunity for all of us to do that. So I do encourage you to submit your application. Show us what you're doing. Show us the best of the best, because you guys are making it happen out there on the front lines. The deadline is December the 1st, so we've only got a couple of weeks left. So please do go online, look at some of the past entries, the past winners. They will show you some tips that you can maybe incorporate in your application. Reach out if you need any sort of mentoring or assistance. But we do very much encourage you to showcase what you're doing and to enter the Chapter Management Awards. Again, the deadline there is December 1st, so clock is ticking on that a little bit. Michael, anything else on that?
Thank you for that, Dianne. Very much looking forward to seeing everybody in Los Angeles early next year. And with that, if you've got a question, you can add it in via this wonderful Google interface, but you can also tweet. And in fact, you could probably email us too, but the two other ones will share your question out so it can be seen by broader people, and we will get to it. And as I mentioned also earlier, in between these calls, there is the chapter leader group on LinkedIn. And in fact, a little plug for a piece of technology that you may want to use. If you are on an Android or an iPhone, I've just recently discovered myself that there's a new app for the LinkedIn groups that actually works remarkably well for exactly that purpose. So you might want to check that out. And there is, of course, also the broader IABC group on LinkedIn. It has 42,000, in fact, might be close to 43,000 people on it now. And actually, I'm just going to quickly, impromptu, ask Melissa just to give a quick update on some of the moderation and the kind of updates that come through there, if that's okay, Melissa.
Sure. So yeah, actually, as part of that new Google Groups interface or app that they've launched, they have actually changed the interface of the groups in the PC app as well, and made some changes to the way the group's moderated, which if people are regular members of that group, they probably saw my post about the changes there, and I think we might have discussed that actually in a previous forum. But certainly the group is a great way to take part in some conversations with other communicators about some current issues, current events. People post articles that they've seen. What we tend to ask for when you are submitting an article in the group is that you don't just send in a link, but actually create a little comment that either is your opinion on it, maybe ask a question. What we're really trying to achieve in the group is some solid, really useful discussion. So if when you're posting you could think about how you can create some great discussion, that's definitely a post that's more likely not to get deleted. Posts that aren't particularly useful, or just perhaps self-promotion, or maybe just advertising something, we tend to sort of take those out of the group because we do want to emphasize and leave a lot of space for discussion. So.
That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, related to that, there's also quite a bit of content out there on the IABC board blog. Dianne has been on the road recently. I've been on the road, so we've got a number of different updates from those. trips in case that is of interest. You want to see what's going on there, including a couple of inspirational leaders that I met on my trip through Florida and Denver and Baltimore just recently, including a 41-years worth of serving leader, as well as somebody really stepping up more recently, and also past chair. So a range of different leaders contributing to advancing the profession there. So let's talk a little bit more about what's coming up specifically that international leaders can engage with. And one of those things, of course, is Gold Quill. And in fact, Melissa, I'm going to hand back to you to talk a little bit more about what's going on with Gold Quill right now.
Sure. So there's actually something coming up for Gold Quill pretty soon, and that is tomorrow is actually the early bird deadline for the Gold Quill program. It was brought forward a little earlier. The Gold Quill committee actually made the decision to bring it forward a little bit because our deadlines, our final deadlines are in January, and we felt it was important to give a deadline for people that was avoiding some of the holiday period in many countries. And so that's why the early bird deadline is now, and we certainly have quite a large number of incomplete entries in the system, which means people have started their entry but haven't quite finished uploading all of their details or putting in all of their materials. And so there's quite a few people who are still just to hit that submit button and get their entries in. But certainly for chapter leaders, all you can do to help promote the Gold Quill program, we do really appreciate it. And I know certainly I've seen a lot of chapters making use of the Gold Quill marketing toolkit. We've seen you using the imagery, we've seen you doing the tweeting, and that's fantastic. We know that particularly with Gold Quill, maybe with everything communicators are involved in, perhaps, things tend to happen at the last minute. We get the vast majority of our entries at the very last minute, and so it's certainly not too late to be promoting even tomorrow's deadline, because people are submitting to that deadline and all the way up until like 11:59 p.m. tomorrow night. So certainly encourage you to keep promoting that with your members and letting them know that that's open. The next deadline is the 13th of January. That is the final deadline. And then we have actually advertised a late deadline. Earlier this year, in last year's program, we had a late deadline which we didn't announce until the day of the final deadline, and the feedback from everybody was that it would be, I guess, a better way to do things to advertise that up front. So that late deadline, the final deadline is the 13th of January, the late deadline is the 27th of January, and that is the late. There will be no more deadlines after that one. So yes, so tomorrow, 13th of January and 27th of January.
I was just about to say those dates again. That's a lot of deadlines. There is an old saying, I'm not sure who said it, but I love the sound of deadlines as they fly by. Swoosh. Right, very good. So get your work in early, get recognized around the world, and of course come across to World Conference. In fact, the gala, very good show and tell there. The gala this coming year will be run by Michael Nord, past regional chair of Europe and Middle East, and who stepped up recently to join the Gold Quill committee. And we'll be working with the staff team there to put on a bit of an extravaganza. So it's not one definitely not to miss. Talking of World Conference, can I quickly ask Carlos maybe to talk a little bit more about the preparations for World Conference?
I'm sorry, Michael. Preparations for the World Conference?
Exactly, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, so we're in full speed in preparations for the World Conference again, June 5th to the 8th, 2016 in New Orleans. A lot of activities are taking place through the Program Advisory Committee, which is currently reviewing submissions and working through the process of selection of speakers and development of the program. That work takes an enormous amount of effort from the Program Advisory Committee, a group that's in excess of 30 volunteers from around the globe. Big commitment on their part, and we're very appreciative of their time and their invaluable insight to build a program. In addition to that, which is promising to be a very strong program, given the number of submissions that we received for the event next year, close to 200, we're also in the process of selecting keynote speakers. And just like this event that took place in 2015 in San Francisco, 2016, New Orleans is promising to be also a very strong event from a keynote speakers. We have a short list that we're working through right now, and hopefully at the next Leadership Forum call, I'll be able to share some of the news related to selections of the keynotes and the excitement around that as it's unfolding. Again, just as Melissa and Michael have mentioned on the Excellence Scale-Up, we're taking a fresh look at the World Conference and looking at ways that we can revitalize the program, that we can bring energy to the program, as well as delivering a full experience of the New Orleans environment. And I think everybody's going to have a lot of fun being in New Orleans for the World Conference in 2016.
Great, and I would of course just add that it's all about the trombones. That's really the core purpose of everything, really. Beyond that, nothing else really matters. But joking aside, we're going to have a very strong program there, and also a great opportunity to really touch in and talk to a range of communication leaders coming in from around the world. We have a very strong presence of people operating at the strategic advisor level at these conferences, and really a very strong diversity as well. So if you have ideas to share, or you want to have an opportunity to meet people and really pick their brains on topics affecting your business as you're adapting to the 21st century and the latest digital technologies, it is really the place to be. And of course, one thing there is a great sort of social element, which is the dine around. So usually an opportunity to meet some people you might not have come across before. And I don't know, do we have any dine around enthusiasts here? I don't know, Dianne, is that something you've been to one of those? Could you maybe speak to that, if that's okay?
I think it's pretty much an institution, dine around. And we will actually be having a dine around at Leadership Institute too, if I might just toot the trombone for Leadership Institute, even though it's not in New Orleans. It's going to be great. It's a great thing, and we have all kinds of different incarnations of dine around. I'm hearing from Southern Region that they are actually going to be turning it up a notch in Atlanta for Southern Region Conference. So at whatever regional level, international level, dine around is a great opportunity to enjoy great food and a great opportunity to meet people you may not otherwise ever meet. You know, we're all about the tribe, right? We're all about the trombones, but we're all about the tribe. So when we go out to dinner, we have conversations that we would not necessarily ever have in any other sphere, right? Because we're with people from around the world who understand our space. And how can we collaborate, and how can we enjoy a great meal? Seems like a win-win situation.
Thank you for that. And actually, there's maybe a little-known fact, or maybe well-known fact, I'm not sure, but for the kind of gourmet gastronomes in IABC, there is an unofficial Facebook group called, I think, IABC Eats, where people post pictures of their lunch, which does type into particular presumptions around how social media is being used and so on, but it's a group that is very dedicated to that, and there's some great activity there. But that's going slightly off topic here. Let's get back to the core and talk a little bit more about certification, specifically some of the tests coming up around the world, if that's okay. Specifically, Carlos, can you maybe talk a bit about that?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. If I could just put one more plug for the World Conference before I move forward, is I just want to thank again, as you have done, Michael, taking Stacy Wilson ABC for her leadership in this, in advancing this program for us. It's so important to the organization, as well as the support for the local chapter. The chapters in New Orleans has been instrumental in helping us plan the event, as well as making sure that we're delivering a superior experience. And then the other activities that always take place as part of the World Conference is specifically the Foundation Luncheon and the Circle of Wisdom, and also the Gift of Communications programs. There are additional programs, if you would, in the Gift of Communication and Luncheon, and I would encourage everyone to also look at those as opportunities for networking, but also to support the organization in the mission of the organization to advance communication as a force for good.
Well said, and I would like to take in that. And of course, it's also particularly encouraging to see that the work that we're doing to make sure that we have strong continuity in our leadership teams is very much in place here. So Preston Lewis, who led the World Conference Program Advisory Committee for the conference that took place early on this year in San Francisco, is of course a very active and strong participant in this broader group, and that's really positive to see that we're basically not reinventing wheels. We're getting a sense of continuity and very strong handover there. So with that, can I push you on talking a little bit more about certification?
Absolutely, thank you. So with great pleasure that we shared some advancements on the certification program. And again, a big thanks goes out to Sue Human, ABC, the chair of the Certification Council, the GCCC, and the work that's being done. It's amazing to think that just in June at the World Conference, we had for the first time delivered the first exam on the CMP certification, and it's exciting to see how quickly it's developing, all thanks to the chapters and the regions from around the globe. To date, we have a strong number of applicants who are submitting to sit for the exam, which is terrific, and the exam is now blanketing the world with the sites in the US, Canada, Europe, Australia, and Africa. Some specific locations and sites are included in the report, the quarterly report that was distributed, as well as on the website, IABC.com website. Again, none of this would have been possible without the support and the leadership of our volunteers from around the globe, and I want to thank them for that.
That's really positive development there. Really positive to see the adoption of this by chapters and also by communication professionals around the world. And it's a real strong progress there. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about a couple of other things coming up here. One of them is the Communications Committee, which you may have read about in our board notes. So Peter McCauley is leading a group there. I won't go into too much detail on this call because it's a debate that's still well underway, but we're working on basically taking a fresh look at how IABC communicates and also continues to implement the brand, so the tone of voice and so on, that's already been adopted. In fact, that's another opportunity to remind you of the great materials that are already available on the Leader Center for brand adoption. I'm very pleased to see that a lot of chapters have already moved on this, but a few are still to get there. So if you are near one, please do give them a nudge and encourage them. Your help would be appreciated. Carlos, we've got a membership survey coming up. Usually people roll their eyes a little bit at surveys, but then nevertheless they can be incredibly useful to help inform direction, work, and whatnot. So could you maybe talk a little bit more about that, and also the work that you've been doing with the membership task force?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Very excited about the work that the membership task force has been charged by the board to look at membership, looking at revitalizing membership, our product, and looking at ways that we can grow membership as part of our organization. So very excited about that. Part and parcel of that, as Michael suggested, is the need for data to educate our decisions, to make sure that the organization is taking a broad view of its representation, and data that will be collected as part of a membership survey that's going to be executed later this year, beginning of next year. And this is being done, again, in collaboration with the work of the membership task force. The group is being led by Claudia Vaccaroni. Excited about the work that they're doing. It's a group that's broad in its composition, representing all the elements of the organization, or the membership of the organization. So very, very broad in its thinking and its way of looking at membership as part of the organization. So a lot more coming there. One of the things that the membership task force is also doing, it's reaching out through the support of the Council of Regions and the leadership of Dianne Chase to chapters and collecting information that can help educate, as well as the development of the survey and the development of the thinking of the task force. So that's also appreciated to the work of the council and the chapters. They're being involved supporting this effort.
And I'm particularly excited as well about a little bit closer to home, or more closer to certainly in time, which is the leadership survey that's just completed. We had very strong participation. Almost 20% of the IBC leaders around the world pitched in. There's about 175 of them who have basically taken the time to give quite lengthy feedback. That's a very strong participation rate for a survey like this. The results are not quite ready yet, but we will share them once we've got them, and we will also spend quite a bit of time on them at the Leadership Institute in February. I think that will really help inform the work that we do around leadership development in this organization. If you have other feedback, though, as a leader, you don't need to wait for a survey or a form to fill out or something like that. In fact, you can come up and prod me in the street if you happen to be in London, or you can seek out Dianne in Charlotte, or come and visit with Carlos and Melissa in San Francisco. But we can also be reached in a much simpler way. It's called the Twitters, via the emails, and other ways through the internets. And in fact, let's cover a couple of questions here. So first of all, we have an endorsement from Kaylee McLaren saying, Dianne Rounds? Absolutely, it's an institution. So that's and goes on to say, made friends at Dianne Rounds I'm still in touch with, which is very positive, and I could certainly concur with that. We did have a question in from Silicon Valley, which is around developing skills for leaders around budgeting, around the importance of doing audits and so on. It's not something that we're going to address in fine detail today, but it is a topic that is certainly close to my heart. We have this year kicked off a new audit and risk committee for IABC, so you can say that the audit element is important. It's basically a broadened set of responsibilities for that committee. I'll tweet a link to it. It's led by Olivier Gadd, who in fact I had an opportunity to spend some quality time with early on today. But of course, at the more granular level for a chapter, audits can also help show transparency of what's going on and so on. So we'll talk a little bit more about that next month, but specifically around how to create a budget for a chapter and so on. I wonder whether we might convince Ginger Holman, our treasurer, to come along and talk a little bit more about both the IBC budget process and so on, but also specifically how chapters, the best chapters in the world, are basically meeting that challenge. And of course, there's a really good opportunity there to talk a little bit about the Chapter Management Award again. And I'm going to hand over to Dianne, if you don't mind, to just briefly run us through what's the point of the Chapter Management Award for us again.
Well, we really want to learn and share. It goes back to the alignment piece, and that's the reduction in wheel invention. So how can we as leaders grow by learning from other leaders, right? And how can we learn new tips and tools that allow us to work smarter and not harder? How do we prevent leader burnout, quite frankly? Because this is the best job we love, right? But it's a matter of motivation and inspiration, and thus the theme for this year's Leadership Institute is inspiring the leader in you. So we become mentors to each other, but we also become students of each other, if you will, in terms of best practices. And the thing about Leadership Institute is it's not just learning how to be a better leader within IABC, but it's about how to be a leader in our profession, how to advocate for our profession, and how to grow in your leadership skills personally so that you can attain your professional goals. So it's really something that is so important to me in terms of my experiences with IABC, and I hope you share that feeling as well. I hope that you will join us and very much encourage you to enter the Chapter Management Awards so that we can look at the best of the best. We can look at what you're doing and learn from you and help grow that whole leadership mentality and skill set that we need, not only as IABC leaders, but for future leaders and especially for advocating for a profession. So those leadership skills that we learn at Leadership Institute are applicable within our organization, but also within our profession as a whole.
I would concur, and then actually it reminds me of something that one of our regional chairs, Julie Ludwig, said at a recent meeting of leaders, that when she first went to her very first Leadership Institute, she said, I came thinking like a finance person because she was carrying that portfolio for her chapter, and then said, and I left thinking like a president. So it doesn't mean that everybody has to necessarily stand for president, but it does give you that broader perspective and helps you think at a more strategic level. We can also most definitely and absolutely and comprehensively help you in other areas of your life, whether it's your professional life or other organizations that you are involved with. So thank you for that. And I just want to take an opportunity to also briefly talk a little bit about some of the events coming up later on this year. We've got a set of diary dates in the most recent report here, so I'm just going to quickly run through those. So we've got coming up, actually right now there's a workshop running, which is Implementation to Impact, move from writer for hire to strategic consultant. In February, we've got the Leadership Institute. That's the 4th to the 6th in Los Angeles. Eurocom, the regional conference for IABC in the European region, is going to take place in Rotterdam in April, 18th to 19th. And then, of course, we've got the World Conference coming up the 5th to the 8th of June in New Orleans. And then we've got a couple of those deadlines. So we've got the early bird deadline coming up already tomorrow for Gold Quill. And just to check here, Melissa, this tomorrow, we're a global organization. Some people are already in the future, meaning for them it's already tomorrow. So the 18th, can you just clarify, what time zone is that?
The deadline is 11:59 p.m. Pacific time on the 18th. So if, that will be various different times. I think it will be 7 p.m. Thursday in Sydney, for example, and probably an ungodly hour in the morning in London on Thursday morning. So yeah, our system is set to basically and look, it's not that entries close, it's just that you lose the ability to get the discounted early bird rate for entry. So if you enter at 12:01 on Thursday Pacific time, then you're just going to have to pay a little bit more, that's all.
Great, thank you for that. And then on the 27th, we've got the Communication Management Professional Exam coming up in Sydney, and that's also the APAC, or the Asia Pacific Leadership Institute, which I'm very much looking forward to participating in myself, and specifically seeing Dianne, Joyce, and other regional leaders there. We've got the Chapter Management Awards deadline, the 1st of December, and then the 31st of December, matey. Just as you close up the year, perhaps open that bottle of champagne, you have the deadline for the Super Saver registration for World Conference. And then coming up already next year, and I'm sure more dates will be added to this, but we've got the Communication Management Professional Exam running in Cincinnati, Ohio. And then additional dates coming up in Chicago, Toronto, Ontario, Halifax, Nova Scotia, London, that would be here in London, not London, Ontario, and then Melbourne, Australia, and so on. And then last but not least, there will also be an exam opportunity in New Orleans. All right. Let's just quickly go around the table here and see if you've got any other things that we might have missed out in the proceedings so far, or any questions coming through in addition.
There is a question that's been submitted. Rebecca Callahan from the IABC DC, that's Washington DC chapter, is looking for some suggestions. Her submission is that the chapter's begun discussing the potential for more shared online sessions for members and to help get more professional development and interaction for those who are really tied to their office too much to come out and attend an event. What suggestions do we have?
Okay, so the first and simplest one is that there is a range of free webinars available to all members across the world. They are set out actually in that same report, but of course also on the IABC website. But also there are a range of both regions and chapters who do additional work to connect more locally. Normally, the focus then is basically, as IABC is the one place in the world that connects global communicators, it tends to be a focus on basically tying that international theme into a more local context and setting, and basically sharing good practice. I'm sure we can find a couple of chapters that might be willing to share some ideas around that. So what we'll do is we'll follow up offline with a couple of notes there, and then maybe actually even get a discussion going on the chapter leader group on LinkedIn, so that we can get some good practice shared there. Great, thank you for that. And then any other questions coming through at this point in time? So all quiet, all quiet. Okay, well, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what else is going on this week. So tomorrow, actually, Carlos and I will have the opportunity to participate in the Canada East region board meeting. I believe that Dianne will be on a plane. She's a busy person and also has to look after clients. But Carlos and I will tag along to hear what's happening across the Canada East region. And this is following an earlier visit with that group by Alain Legault and Sharon Hunter from the board. And so we're very much looking forward to taking questions and sharing updates from IABC with that. And that's just one of the many opportunities that we take to engage with leaders at all the different parts of IABC on a regular basis, because we recognize that it is really through face-to-face and quite often one-to-one communication that we really get that collaboration going and get that shared understanding, and ultimately move both the profession and also the association forward. So the last thing that remains is just to talk a little bit about nominations. So we've got now, thanks to help from actually Kirsten Peterson, our governance coordinator, a great set of pages that set out the various committees that are active and task forces that are active in advancing IABC's global agenda. And with that, we also have a set of new additions to that global team through our most recent call for nominations. There is something called the IABC Nominating Committee. It sounds like an august body, and indeed it is. The majority of it is made up of actually the Council of Regions. And in fact, Dianne, you participated in that most recent process. And without, bearing in mind that it's a confidential process, because people, of course, are applying from around the world, and the deliberations go into detail around that and so on. Could you maybe just talk a little bit more about basically who is in that group?
Well, it is one of the critical roles and responsibilities, and fairly new actually in that space for the Council of Regions. The chairs of all the regions around the world have the very important task of considering candidates for leadership in IABC at the committee level, as well as the International Executive Board. So we've just completed our round of candidate recommendations endorsed by the IEB for various important committees. As you mentioned, Michael, we have the editorial committee. We had a strong response in people interested in that. So the thing is, consider leadership in the future. If you have a committee that you've been thinking about getting involved in, feel free to reach out and keep that on your radar to step up and apply for the next round. In the meantime, we are getting set to open the call for nominations for the International Executive Board. So that's another important task that is front and center for the region chairs coming up very soon. And then certainly the big event happens at Leadership Institute, where we will consider the slate.
That's right. So there's an opportunity to stand up for new opportunities, and this committee, of course, is in line with our bylaws, led by Russell Grossman, past chair of IABC. The most recent deliberations have delivered a number of new members, and I'll just quickly run through them here. So Christiane Vaillancourt has joined the Global Communication Certification Council. We've also added a vice chair to the Policy Review Committee, which is chaired by Zora Artis, but the new vice chair is Victor Sanlakos. And also we've got, in addition to Olivia Gadd's Audit and Risk Committee, Alexander Tartov. And then I'm really excited about one of the key new groupings, or refreshed groupings rather, because we have had an advisory committee for Communication World for some time, but we're extending the responsibilities for that group into a full-fledged editorial committee for IABC. And actually we've got John Clemens, an IABC fellow and of course a past chair, and in fact he's got the triple crown. He's also a past interim executive director of this association, and he will be stepping up to chair that committee, and he'll be joined by Ruth Kinsey as vice chair, and then Melissa Prince, Stephen Welch, Paul Ladd, Cheryl Carr, and Christine Elmer. And they will be stepping up. And in fact, Carlos and I are going to meet, and Natasha will meet with John later on this week, just to get proceedings started. One of the key things that this group will be looking at is a shared editorial calendar for IABC, so that we all have an opportunity to be part of that global conversation more clearly. IABC has, of course, always had an editorial calendar, but we might not, for example, at the regional level and the chapter level, have done as much as we might have been able to do, or could do, to basically hook into that, link into it, and basically share that conversational drive. So I'm very excited about that progress there. Great. Unless there are any additional questions, I think we're probably going to allow people a little bit of time back in their day. We've covered a lot today, so I'm just going to very briefly recap all the things that we've talked through. So first of all, the latest report from IABC, it is available on iabc.com. It's also goes into quite a lot of detail, not only around who does what at IABC. There's a terrifically detailed update from Carlos on our technology and things like that. I talk a little bit about the advance we made on governance and so on. And it also has a run-through of updates from our hardworking leaders around the world, whether it is on Gold Quill, the Academy, the Global Communications Certification Council, the Membership Task Force, and so on. And as also a set of handy dates coming up. And of course, a full page dedicated to the Leadership Institute with a nice picture of Dianne as she introduces that work coming up there. And then we also talked a little bit about the November board. We always share notes from our board meetings. They are on the board blog. I've tweeted the link to that, so if you check Twitter, you should be able to find those relatively quickly and easily. And we also talked about Membership Month, which shared an update on technology and so on. And indeed, Dianne did a shout out to the chapters that did the best with that month, and congratulations to all of them. And also, we talked a little bit about the Leadership Institute coming up next year in Los Angeles. And then we had a little bit of a show and tell, and let's have one more. The show and tell for the Imagine for Gold Quill, with deadlines coming up. We talked about the certification tests, the communication committee led by Katie McCauley. Carlos briefly covered the membership survey, and we also talked about the leadership survey, which has just closed. And then last but not least, we talked about the nominations coming up and also some of the recent appointments. And then I'm not sure whether I left anything out, but that was quite a lot. Any final thoughts? I'll start with Melissa.
No, I've just done a quick check of all of our channels and I can't see any additional questions. So if you've got your typing fingers going, then get something in the next 30 seconds so that I can read it out if you have a question still to present.
No problem. All right, Dianne?
Just a huge appreciation for everything. You mentioned the leader survey and the response, Michael. Thank you for really stepping up and sharing your thoughts and your feedback. it really is critical to us as we move forward. So thank you for that. Thank you for all you're doing. Look forward to seeing you on the road or definitely at Leadership Institute. And stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Carlos?
I would echo Diane's comments, thanking everyone for their support, and also extending that I'm always available. If there's any questions, any concerns, please feel free to call me, email me. I'm available, and I'm happy to work through any challenges and provide any recommendations and suggestions as we charge forward.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely, and I just want to close out with an appreciation of really a hard-working and amazing team of 1,000 leaders around the world. But there are a few in my day-to-day life that certainly make life easier. Carlos is indeed available generally almost 24 hours a day because we are in different time zones. So I appreciate his dedication and hard work on that. And then also Dianne, Melissa, I really appreciate your help and support with this. I think we'll close out the November leader call. I'll just quickly remind you of the fact that the conversation can continue on the Twitters, but of course also on the IABC chapter leader group. It's a great place to do it. And then last but not least, we are all available on the blower, as we say around here, on the emails and so on. We should be relatively easy to track our down. Meanwhile, please go out, help encourage the world's best communicators to submit the world's best work to Gold Quill. Now's the chance to get recognized. Sign up for the Leadership Institute. Make sure that you bring your friends to World Conference. And of course, last but not least, if you are an award-winning or soon-to-be award-winning chapter leader, you do need to get your entry into the Chapter Management Awards. And by the way, there's a little secret there. You can actually find the past entries and you can learn what other people did, so you don't need to reinvent the wheel. How about that? So, in conclusion, this has been the November Leadership Forum. Thanks to all of you in all the various time zones that you are. And we'll be back in December. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.